persuasion that says, I've overcome the death and tribulation in the world.
Amen.
That's how you walk in the Spirit.
Right.
You walk in the spirit of, I have all things that pertain to life and godlikeness. Jesus was raised up as a human being in glorified flesh. When you see Jesus standing there in glorified flesh, do you think he lacked anything that was needed for life and godlikeness?
No.
Okay, well, Paul says, likewise, we believe that we shall live with him.
Yes.
Consider yourselves dead to death and alive to God.
Right.
Right? So, what happens is, when you believe on the resurrection, is that resurrection is designed to speak a word to your heart that tells you you lack nothing as it pertains to having life and God-likeness.
That's right.
Now you're so successful.
You I'm going to say that again. Because all the fruit of death that you see in your life, you know what it's trying to tell you? You lack something that's needed for life in God-likeness. You're living by the knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
You're judging yourself by your knowledge of what you say is good and what you say is evil. And if you think you're getting it good for a little while, you feel righteous. If you think you're getting it bad for a little while, you feel like a worm. But listen, something beautiful's happened because of the resurrection. We no longer live by the knowledge of good and evil. We live by the knowledge of the Son of God.
Yes.
Right.
We live by the knowledge of His incorruptible life. And we look upon His life, and we look upon His glorified flesh, and we consider that that's our life.
Yes.
And then we start believing we lack nothing as it pertains to life and God-likeness. God-likeness. He who has the Son lacks nothing as it pertains to God-likeness.
Right.
Nothing. Have you believed on Jesus? Have you said to yourself, I can't give myself life? Only Jesus can save me from the death in the world. Have you said that? Then guess what? You have the Son.
Yes.
Then guess what John come and said about that? He who has the Son has life and cannot sin.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right, that's good.
Now, what does that mean?
You don't miss the mark.
What does that mean?
Don't miss the mark.
You don't miss the mark. Because what's sin? To miss the mark. What's God's mark for your life?
Eternal
That you
life.
live eternally and not die. He who has the Son has life and can't miss the mark.
Right.
Okay.
So we've defined sin by the fruit of sin
Yes, we
instead of what it actually is.
Right.
Paul called it the works of the flesh. He didn't call that sin.
Right.
Right? And so we think doing righteousness is based on what we're going to do outwardly.
Yes.
But no. The righteous thing to do is to believe what God said through Jesus. What did God say through Jesus? You can't give yourself life through your works. You can only have life if you receive it as a gift. Right? The righteous thing to do is believe that. If you believe that, you're righteous. That's it. What's the righteous thing to do? It's to believe that God will give you life free from your works as a gift through Christ Jesus. That's the righteous thing to do. John says, if you've done that, you're righteous. You've done righteousness. What's the righteousness that's of faith? When you believe on Jesus, which is to believe that you have all things that pertain to life and God-likeness, do you know what that faith will do to you? It will cause you to rest in God.
Yes, it will.
That's the righteousness that comes from faith. Faith will cause you to trust God. The righteous thing to do is to trust God. Well, when you see the faith that was manifested in the resurrection of Jesus, promising you that same glory and immortality in your physical body, that faith will cause you to rest in God.
Yes.
That's the righteousness that comes from faith. Faith brings forth the righteous act of resting in God's love for you. Faith, not your faith,
Right.
the
His
faith.
Right.
The faith that was made flesh in the resurrection of Jesus will bring forth the righteous act in a person who hears that and cause them to rest in God's love for them. It says, by the righteousness of one man, Jesus.
That's right.
What was his righteousness?
Faith in God. His
Yeah.
absolute trust in the Father.
Faith in God.
Right.
Wait, you mean it wasn't all the fruit of the Spirit that he did?
That's good.